Welcome to the Wizarding Wireless Network podcast with me, AJ.
And me, Will.
Together, we will be bringing you our no-holds-barred thoughts, opinions, and detailed analysis in all things Wizarding World. So with that in mind, grab yourself a glass of fire whiskey and settle into this week's episode of the WWN.
Welcome to the Wizarding Wireless Network with your hosts AJ and Will, streaming to you on all of your favourite podcast providers and on YouTube. On today's show, we'll be talking about Chapter 5, dear. Chapter 5, Diagon Alley.
Diagon Alley. You said
Diagon Alley.
You said that with some determination. No mistaking your location.
Well, you've got to be really eloquent in how you say things for Floo Powder.
Certainly, but we will touch upon that in Chamber of Secrets. But for now, Diagon Alley. We spoke about this a little bit in the last week's episode, which I think we delved a little bit too much into because we were going to save a fair amount of this for this chapter. However...
But the thing is, there's still so much that we can still delve into within this chapter because actually it covers quite a long part of this journey. It's not just Diagon Alley that's in this chapter.
I know, and see, this is the thing, because we were talking in the previous episodes about a few chapters feeling like filler chapters, but all of a sudden it just sort of feels like everything has went from 0 to 100. Because within the past chapter, Harry's been told that he's a wizard. His mum and dad were actually murdered by this skeletal man. His aunt and uncle have lied to him and abused him for this whole part of his life. And now he is flung headfirst into the wizarding world. He's going to get his wand, he's going to get his school uniform, he's got all of his books, and he's going to Gringotts to get all of this inherited wealth that he had no idea about 24 hours previous. So there is a lot going on in here. There is a lot going on. But one thing as well that we get in this chapter is the introduction of the original Slytherin bad boy, Draco Malfoy.
See, it's interesting because, like, you don't even really know that you're being introduced to him, like, when it's being talked about, because there's no description about him.
No, none at all. You just know that it's like a blonde, arrogant boy getting his school uniform with his mother.
I generally don't even think that it even mentions that he's blonde in the chapter. I think it's literally just a case of it's him in the shop, his mum's off getting his pets, his dad, or the wand, and his dad's off somewhere else getting like his equipment or his supplies. Mm-hmm. And it's literally like, oh my God, this is Dudley Mark II. Exactly.
But Dudley Mark II with a wand. Even more dangerous, arguably, but still a prick.
Exactly. Like, this is a threat right now. Like, what was interesting is the fact, like, he's already picked up on the fact, like, oh my God, this is like Dudley Mark II. Like, I already hate you and I haven't even met you yet.
Yeah, You can just sort of tell from the overarching sense of pretentiousness and entitlement that he's got that he and Harry are just not going to get on at all.
Literally, the way it's like described of his voice being so kind of like dullard is just like, you know, that type of voice is just like the pretentiousness, the arrogance is just up there.
Yeah, and I feel like this was a really good introduction to Draco Malfoy because throughout the remainder of the books and the films, that is essentially what he is. He is just arrogance personified. And I know we've spoken about this a little bit about the whole Dudley being a product of his mum and dad. And this exact same can be said for Draco Malfoy. I remember hating Draco Malfoy whenever I was reading the books for the first time, seeing the films, but progressively as the series went on, and as I've gotten older, rereading the books again, but from an adult's perspective, it's really heartbreaking when you see what this boy is going through, because he's been brought up to think that because he's a pure blood, he is better than anyone else in the whole of the wizarding world. And then all of a sudden to be told that his dad is one of the most loyal followers of the darkest wizard of all time, then to be inducted into that order himself, then to have Voldemort and all of the Death Eaters be at his house as basically base camp. And then to constantly live on that knife edge of, will me or my family get murdered for how Voldemort is feeling on this particular day. So he must have been in an absolute heightened state of anxiety and fear for the whole of his life up until the end of the Second Wizarding War.
I think it's definitely something that's very much missed within the films, of that kind of redemption and that kind of like realization of he is actually, it's almost like he's born into the wrong family, but not in terms of like, this is what I wanted. It's more the case of like, this is a life that I didn't choose, but I'm being kind of dictated to have.
Exactly. It's sort of like, you can see the parallels between him and Dudley, and I know that I do keep coming back to this. The thing was, though, Dudley enjoyed that life. Draco didn't.
Yeah. And like Draco is actively seeking like an out. And again, it doesn't really come across in the films that this is where he's starting off. He's an arrogant, pretentious little
so-and-so.
Yeah. And as he gets through the books, he becomes less like that. And it's not really until like the 6th book that you kind of like see him like try to do a full 180. But in the films, it's kind of like he's just he's not even really that much of a bad guy or a bully. Like, he's a bit of a dick, but other than that, like, he's not really like as much as he is in the books.
Yeah, I mean, it's all learned behaviour, and that's the thing. It's all learned behaviour, and the fact that he was then put into Slytherin, and the head of his house was a Death Eater and a prick at that, he had no chance.
Now, I just want to defend some Slytherins here, because at the end of the day, we are not evil.
No, I didn't say that. By no means did I say that.
We are just very ambitious people. We will just do what we need to do to get where we want to get to.
And I cannot fault you for that. What I mean is, had Draco had some paternal steering in his life as opposed to dictatorship, well, he may have been a bit happier.
Oh, exactly. Like, if Dumbledore had just shown him a bit more love, I think actually he would have turned to the good side a lot sooner. Exactly.
But enough about Draco Malfoy at the moment, because I've got a lot of things I could say about that boy. God love him. Yeah, no, so coming back to the journey to Diagon Alley. So when we last seen Harry, he was just told that he was a wizard. He's fallen asleep, and now he's woken up the morning after, still under the impression that this could, the whole thing be a dream. But he's woken up underneath Hagrid's jacket. He's still in the hut on the rock. But the Dursleys are nowhere to be seen. Now,
well, I wanted to touch on this, because actually, like, that first sentence of the chapter of Harry woke up early next morning, like, I don't know about you, but I got serious, like, child at Christmas vibes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like, that was a dream. Like, this can't be happening. Like, I'm so excited, I can't sleep. And to kind of like wake up and still be kind of like pinching yourself, kind of going like, is this a dream? Is this real? Was this all like fake? And I'm just like back under the stairs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've all had that, because I mean, no doubt when we've all been children and sometimes adults, we've had that dream where, you have been told you are a wizard, and then you do wake up in your bed and you do need to go to work the next day, or you do need to go to school. And it's the most soul-destroying feeling ever.
And I think this is one of the things that I was going to say to you. It's like, have you actually ever had like a dream where it was so good and you've just been interrupted by like your alarm or someone waking you up, and all you want to do is just go back to bed and just like be like, can I just continue this dream for like maybe 5 more minutes?
Exactly. And the thing is, no matter how much you try to get back to sleep, you can never, ever do it. No. If you're having like an absolute horrific dream, horrific nightmare, oh God, absolutely fall asleep like that. But if you're having
back into that nightmare.
Exactly. You've got no hope. Absolutely no hope.
So yeah, I honestly like those that being the first sentence of this chapter is just like waking up at Christmas time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Now, delving a bit deeper into the chapter, just as they're about to leave, as Hagrid and Harry are about to leave the hut on the rock, I can never say that quickly enough, the hut on the rock. The hut on the rock. As they are about to leave the hut on the rock, we can see the remnants of the Dursleys' boat still there on the rock. And it was said that it was to be still filling with water. Now, dear listeners, my question is this to you. How did the Dursleys get off that rock?
Yeah, if you guys know, like, please let us know, because I am just as confused as you are with this, because if it's a completely, like, isolated area, you've got to get it by boat. There's no signal. They've obviously got no mobiles because mobiles didn't exist at that point. Like, you might have been lucky to have a cell phone.
Mm.
To then be able to get off of that island without the boat?
Exactly. Like, where is their Calmac ferry?
Exactly. Where's the catamaran?
Exactly. Where is it? Please write in and let us know, because I am dying to know.
Just Hagrid just boots them off the island and he kicks them so hard it's like Team Rocket going into space. But like, even like, so you've got the Dursleys like leaving unexpectedly, have no idea how that happened. But then you've got Hagrid flew in.
On what?
Please do tell, because I'm sorry.
The motorbike was nowhere to be seen unless he has mastered the.
Like, he's got an extension charm on his like pockets of that bloody coat of his.
Well, I mean, exactly. Unless he's mastered the feat of what's the word, like broomstickless flight, you know, because only, as far as I was aware, only Voldemort and Snape could do that in the books. And
he can't apparate, so I don't really.
No, there's more to that man than meets the eye.
He's definitely hiding a few secrets. There's so many pockets to that coat. There's definitely one or two secrets in that pocket.
Literally.
But yeah, it's like, there's no motorbike to be seen. There's no broom. Like, what broom could carry Hagrid?
Well.
Like, he clearly flew in on a dragon.
Where? What, like?
No, the dragon just dropped him off, let him go, and then.
Oh, sort of kind of like that Ukrainian Iron Belly over the lake vibe.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Maybe a Thestral. Like, you know how Hagrid is with his magical creatures, but I don't think a Thestral, like, those bones would just break.
Yeah.
Like, they already look fragile enough.
Do you know what the word they are? Frail. They are frail.
Osteoporosis on legs.
Literally, like, Luna should be feeding them calcichews instead of red meat. I'm telling you right now. Madame Pomfrey, she should be on that.
So I am confused about how the Dursleys one got off the island, how Hagrid flew to that hut on the rock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let us know. Like, if you guys know any of these answers, like, I'm really interested to know how this happened.
Please let us know.
So one of the other things that I wanted to touch on before we kind of leave the hut on the rocks was obviously one of the first things that actually wakes Harry up is the owl delivering a newspaper.
Yeah.
And albeit he believes it's Petunia knocking and groans and everything, finding out it's an owl, delivers a newspaper, and then has to pay this owl.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my head, I would think, oh yeah, no, it's just after a mouse. Like, it wants some treats, it wants some feeding. No. This owl wants money.
It's a sentient working owl.
This is not slave labour.
No, that owl is out getting those nuts. Don't be so childish, William.
So I did a little bit of maths because later on in the chapter, we find out the kind of conversion rates of everything. So
is this current rates in line with inflation?
This is in line with current inflation and cost of living crisis money.
Okay.
So we find out that 1 galleon is 17 sickles and 1 sickle is 29 nuts. So before everyone's heads explode from working out the maths, I have done you a favor. I have done the work for you. I spent maybe a few hours like trying to work all of this out. So Rowling explained that 1 galleon is equivalent to about £5.
Okay, it's not bad.
So no, it's not a bad conversion rate. I mean, it's just under £5.
Okay.
So the equivalence of then deducting it all the way down, we then have a newspaper for 5p.
Now that's decent for 1990. And I'll tell you something. So my local newspaper that I read from back home, the Gringotts Telegraph, big shout out. I remember back in the day when that was 35p, and it is now 80 pence an issue.
Like I remember like newspapers like being like 50p. Like they are extortionate. I mean, like who is getting a newspaper these days anyway? Like it's all like digital.
It is, but there is still something quite nice about reading a newspaper.
Your A3 sheet.
An A3 sheet. I only read it to see who's dead and who's getting married. Hatch, match and dispatch. That's what I'm here for.
Honestly, there is a thing running through our office at the moment and someone has got the BBC app and you know it has that like dun sound when like a breaking news thing is. Everyone in the office will now turn around and just go, who's died?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I do that all the time. Absolutely. And if I've got a friend that phones me out with normal phoning hours, I'll say, who's dead now? Because for some reason, whenever I speak to one of my best friends from back home, it's always, hi, how are you? Yeah, I'm good. How are you? Yeah, good. Oh, by the way, guess who's died?
Oh my God, AJ, you're at that age already. Like, that's not meant to happen until you're in retirement age.
I'm just going to say, you're like 9 months younger than me, so that will creep up on you very quickly.
I'm still at the stage where everyone's getting married at this point.
Yeah, me too.
So, I mean, moving on to one of the other kind of points. So we slowly get a bit more kind of information as we kind of go through, and the kind of conversations that Hagrid has with Harry is really filling in quite a lot of gaps, because obviously Harry's now kind of woken up to the idea that this is actually happening to him.
Yeah.
And then suddenly all of these questions are pouring in as Hagrid's reading this newspaper. One of them being about the new Minister for Magic. So I didn't realise, or it hadn't really twigged until now, that actually Fudge was newly appointed at this point. He had only just been elected in 1990 as the Minister for Magic.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long did he last in his reign? So when did he resign? End of
So it must have been 1996. 6 years is quite a decent term. If you go by kind of like Prime Minister and like President length of terms, that's quite a decent.
Jesus, in the UK, 6 months is a good time for like a Prime Minister.
In current climate, Jesus.
If a lettuce can outlive a Prime Minister, I have questions.
Let's not get political.
Let's not. However, here is another game for you, right? So see back when, it was the whole Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, gate, X, Y, and Z, when that was all going on. I seen this thing and it was build your own cabinet, right? So the idea was that you take all of the names of the departments that the Prime Minister can appoint. So the cabinet positions. So, for example, if I was Prime Minister, who would I have in this position? And it would be like your friends and family.
So was that where you started getting everyone from the chat to input what they wanted to be as part of your cabinet?
Yeah, pretty much. And for the life of me, I cannot remember who I put stuff down. But it's essentially, who would you have as the health secretary? I think I put you down as health secretary.
Naturally.
But obviously. And then who would you have as education, secretary of defence, etc., etc. So something like that. But I would love to know what is the process behind the Minister for Magic electing a government or like a cabinet?
Well, this was the interesting thing, because I did a bit of kind of like digging around it, because I was a bit intrigued as to the fact that Fudge was so junior when he was then appointed. Like, what did he do beforehand?
Who did he kill?
Well, exactly. Who did he poison to get into power?
Who did he shag?
That's more the question. That is more the appropriate question.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a bit of digging, and Fudge was the head of catastrophes, like magical catastrophes.
That's ironic,
I know, right?
considering his whole bloody premiership was a catastrophe.
Literally his appointment. It was foreshadowing.
Oh yeah, very true. See, little nuggets.
The breadcrumbs. So yeah, there must be a cabinet, or like they at least have like heads of department and they all kind of feed back.
We should really discuss this at another episode, and we should build a cabinet. If we were Minister for Magic for a day, who would you have in your cabinet? Yeah. And by the way, since we're on the subject of polls, Pumpkin Percy's. Who's she? Pumpkin pasties for the win. Yes, Katie Lungy. Yes, Cho Chang. Bring it home for Scotland. Pumpkin pasties.
I'm just putting it out there. I am still waiting for my NMNS in bursary for this.
I'm just saying, can you hear the tea that is being sipped? I win.
To be fair, you now won't be able to unhear that when you watch that scene back.
I know. I must admit, I did thoroughly enjoy your little animation that you made to pumpkins with Percy Weasley's head on it.
Okay, so I am going to have to give credit. So that was Diagon Ellie.
Was it?
Yeah, so she messaged and she just absolutely burst out laughing at the idea of 2 pumpkin Percys and edited that. So shout out to, honestly, big up Ellie. And she did, like, it cracked me up for the entire evening that I couldn't not have it as the thumbnail.
Yeah, she delivered. She delivered, as she always does. What a gal. What a gal. Do you know what I've also just... I don't think Goblet of Fire came out in 2004. I want to say it was 2006 or 7.
It was delayed, yeah. It was one of those films that I think there was a 2-year gap. So it was I think it was 2005. There was a year's gap between the films. So that was the longest gap between filming.
It was 2005.
Whoop, whoop. See, I didn't know it was not the longest film, but I do know when it was released.
Are you still on that?
I'm not letting that go.
No, I won't either, don't worry.
I am a Harry Potter fan, I swear.
So 2005 that came out. Wow.
Yeah. So I do know some things. It's just really like QI facts about Harry Potter.
Was that 18 years ago?
Don't. Triggered, don't.
Yeah, that's depressing.
Yeah, don't. We're already at like the anniversary of Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, we are. Talking of which, I am buzzing my little tits off for the Minalima book.
Same, honestly. Have you pre-ordered?
I haven't. Being in a very fortunate position of living quite relatively close to the shop, I like to go in and pick up the book, and sometimes they do signing, so I'll get it signed on in person.
Oh, amazing.
And that's the thing. And I'm sure you'd be the same, and everyone else is. But whenever I reread the books, whether it be the adult version, the child's version, just with the different covers, or even if I do the illustrated editions, I imagine it in a completely different way. So it's like I'm reading it again for the first time.
I don't know what it is. I just love going through them and just having those pictures with it. And I think I'm at the point where like I don't really need to read the book to get what's going on.
I know, exactly. And interestingly enough, I mean, for this episode, or rather the last episode, we did have a little research into the illustrated edition of Philosopher's Stone, and see whenever you look at it and see all the shops of Diagon Alley lined up, there's one illustration in particular, and it's this second-hand wizard jump shop, and it's just amazing. It's just so funny, because it's like, you can imagine an old house with ivy going up the walls. It's like that, but just crap. It's like teapots,
books, cobwebs, old cauldrons.
Literally anything and everything.
And I just love the different interpretations of it. So like even the Mina Lima version where you've got like the fold out, like the building like folds out. I think that's one of the things that I really like about their editions is the fact that like it's so kind of tactile as well as illustrative.
Yeah, exactly. It's so nice.
Honestly. So I'm with you. I'm definitely looking forward to their next installment. So part of the conversation that Hagrid and Harry have then when they're going over is all to do with, I think the majority of it actually is part of Gringotts.
Yeah.
And it's quite surprising because obviously this whole chapter is about Diagon Alley, but a majority of it is taken up with just facts and introduction to Gringotts, which I was quite surprised about reading back through about how little is the shops itself.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed was it went really deep into stealing and robbing from Gringotts.
Yes.
And actually, like, the idea of robbing from Gringotts is pretty much impossible. Like, no one can do it. No one should even attempt it because there's so many safeguards in place. And, like, people die robbing Gringotts.
Exactly. And I think that is quite well illustrated, especially in Deathly Hallows Part 2. But there's a couple of things about that I wanted to pick up on. Because in the book, in Philosopher's Stone, it says that the guards of Gringotts are goblins, and they are wearing these really illustrious, I think it's red and gold uniforms.
Yeah.
We see in Deathly Hallows Part 2 that it's wizards, and they are wearing these drab grey uniforms. Now, I think we had spoken about, was that a Voldemort ruling that he got rid of the goblins and only kept them just to deal with the money as opposed to the security because he couldn't possibly trust them? Or was that just a
miscommunication?
Yeah, a little miscommunique.
I think it's definitely like one of those, I think it's definitely come in because Voldemort became into power. I think he wanted to have some ruling because he deems anything that's not a wizard, like a pure blood wizard, as substandard.
Yep.
So even goblins being as powerful as they are and being as devious as they are, he doesn't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for him being in power, he then wanted wizards to be in some form of control over everything, including the banks.
Yeah.
So I think actually having the goblins still run Gringotts, but being overseen by wizards, I think that was definitely a very Voldemort decision to do.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a wise one, I would say, from a dictator point of view. I'm not trying to justify his actions, but I'm saying, I mean, from a managerial perspective, it seems pretty sensible.
So, I mean, it's kind of like foreshadowing, like you said about Deathly Hallows, like actually all of this talk about the security around Gringotts is literally this whole breadcrumb thing of this is what's going to happen, even though we don't know this yet. This is what's going to happen in Deathly Hallows. Of 7 years later, these guys are going to be breaking into Gringotts and trying to do the impossible.
Exactly. Interesting. But as well as that, it's when I was reading the books, it specifically says that Gringotts was hundreds of miles underneath London, like well below the London Underground. And I find it funny that from my interpretation of reading that, you would expect the entrance to be hundreds of miles underground, but it's literally on street level. Because even if you come in from the Leaky Cauldron into Diagon Alley, it's on street level.
I think the bit that I'm a bit confused about is, like, I get that it's going to be on, like, the bank entrance is going to be on street level, but in such a short space of time, you must have, like, this sheer drop and you're just doing a vertical descent through. So whether or not, like, they've got, like, really cool, like, caged elevators and you just drop through things, or is it a case of, like, you get on your little carriage and you're going along and then just suddenly, boom, dropping, like, under the streets of London. So I think, yeah, it's definitely interesting, like, the fact that the entrance is on street level. And I think it makes a lot of sense because obviously you've got the desks and the entranceway.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, I want to know, like, how they kind of get down. Is it like an elevator? Is it like a spiral? Is it a sheer drop? Because I think I've seen one schematic of Gringotts, and it almost seems like it is just a sheer drop.
It must be. But I think as well in Gringotts, they say that the most valuable vaults are the deepest down, don't they?
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to know what else is in these vaults.
Like, what are people storing that's so valuable?
Exactly. Also, if you do ever get a chance to go to the Warner Brothers studio tour, have a look at the Lestrange Vault, because there is so many intricacies in that set. It's unreal.
Let's talk a bit about before kind of like Hagrid's and Harry's entrance to Diagon Alley, because that is the main kind of like introduction to the Wizarding World. We're finally taking the first steps from Muggle to Wizarding World.
Yes.
And one of the things that is mentioned, it's really like a subtle hint, is the Leaky Cauldron being like pretty much unnoticeable to every person walking past. And it's that little subtle hint of it being cast with a delusionment charm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's such a nice touch that like even Harry wouldn't have noticed it if Hagrid hadn't pointed it out.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing of like you're starting to see the magic unravel within this chapter.
Yes.
When we get into Leaky Cauldron, what did you make of that kind of fanfare with Harry?
It was just like another world for him. I mean, I know it literally is another world for him, but I mean, to literally go from someone who was, in essence, nameless to his family to walking into a pub surrounded by strangers who he had no idea existed, to every single one of them knowing his name, but he not knowing why they know his name. It was just like, whoa, what is going on here?
Yeah, and he even asked, like, he's like, it's really confusing because it's like, I don't even know, like, why I'm famous. Like, why do people know who I am?
Yeah.
And it's definitely, like, one of those disorientating facts of Harry is still finding out who he is.
The next 7 years for him is like his gap year. I'm just finding out who I am, you know?
It's just a long gap year.
It's just, yeah, it's just been like a really tough 11 years for me. So I'm taking this next 7 years just for me. This is my live, laugh, love era.
Now, one of the interesting things that I found when he was in the Leaky Cauldron was obviously like he's being greeted by like loads of people. And what was quite nice is that you're reading the chapter, but I can't help but have the lines from the film as I'm reading it.
So difficult not to do that.
Doris Cropfer, Mr. Potter. Pleasure to meet you at last.
Harry Potter.
Now, actually, you doing Quirrell's impression. Interesting thing, he shakes his hand.
Yeah.
Now, I'm very confused because I thought that the whole reason, like, they did it in the film and it made a lot more sense in the film for him not to shake his hand because he couldn't touch Harry.
Now, I am going to circle you back to a conversation we had about 3 years ago, Mr. Hibbert.
Okay.
And I will tell you for why. Because I asked the same question and you texted me back in your very matter-of-fact way as you do. Like, well, actually, this is the reason why. And I'm going to pull this up for you right now.
Oh, Christ. Now it's going to be a blast from the past. What did I actually say?
God knows, probably something condescending. I'm kidding. And it was basically, you had said something along the lines of, I think after the debacle with, remember at Halloween when Quirrell tried to get the Philosopher's Stone and the Troll was released? This whole shebang. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that failed, Voldemort said that he was going to keep a closer eye on Quirrell, so he essentially possessed him and lived on the back of his head. So that's why pre-Halloween he was able to shake his hand. They didn't really say that well in the film, but I'm pretty sure that's the explanation that you gave me.
Okay, yes, no, it is. I found it.
Mm.
So I said, so Voldemort isn't on the back of Quirrell's head at this point. And you were like, I'm sure he is. He meets him in Albania during the year he took out. And this is obviously then one of the things that I wanted to talk about was actually then, that's one of the things that I picked out for this one. So I'm eating my own words at this point.
Mm.
So you then gave me a Reddit feed, which is, I just finished reading the books, and my understanding was that Voldemort didn't share Quirrell's body until after he messed up the bank heist. Until then, Quirrell was still able to touch Harry. He got the handshake in there just in time. He does. He then is working for Voldemort when he meets Harry. However, it's not until Quirrell fails to steal the stone from Gringotts later that day that Voldemort wanted to keep a closer eye on Quirrell. This is then seen in Chapter 7, where it's mentioned that Quirrell's looked weird in a turban.
So he's not wearing a turban then?
Clearly not. So, again, I'm just guessing, like, it would have been interesting if... Because it's not mentioned that he wears a turban when they meet them in the Leaky Cauldron.
Interesting.
Whereas in the film, they've given Quirrell a turban from the get-go, which is then why he then doesn't shake Harry's hand in the film. So I think I made a very good point.
Okay.
I do stand by my point, and I will argue anyone who says differently.
Okay, well, stand by your point.
So yeah, I'm glad I found that text, because actually, I was actually going to even make the point of, like, Quirrell shook Harry's hand, but then shouldn't have done because he can't touch Harry and all of this malarkey. So I'm kind of glad that you actually brought that up, because I thought...
A 5-second rule. Oh no, he's touched my hand.
Just turns to a pile of soot there and then. End of story. Do.
Directed by Chris Columbus.
But this is what I thought. Like, I thought the same thing as you actually rereading this chapter was Hagrid makes a huge point of him being like okay up until the point he goes to the Black Forest, and then suddenly he meets a vampire and is now scared of his students and his own subject. Like, he's obviously, we both know who he's met.
Yeah.
It hadn't quite clicked, like, that he's only met Voldemort at this point. He hasn't actually done any kind of, like, dirty deed where he is linked with Voldemort.
Yeah.
So actually that makes a lot of sense that it's not until afterwards that he's then wearing a turban, and that's when he's got Voldemort as a part of him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would have made a bit more sense is if there was a bit more description to Quirrell at that point. I think that's what's missing within this chapter. Is it just leaves a bit of ambiguity of, like, was he wearing a turban in the Leaky Cauldron? Wasn't he? Because they make a remark later on that he's now wearing a turban, but you don't get any context of that prior to that meeting.
Yeah.
So we kind of stagger our way through the Leaky Cauldron, busting away through like a crowd of people, shifting people out the way because Doris Crockford can't get enough of Harry. She's that creepy old woman who can't stop shaking hands. We finally get into the back room and we hear the line. Not that type of back room, AJ. And we finally get the line, "Welcome to Diagon Alley." We are finally in the Wizarding World.
Yes. Love it.
I am waiting to go to Universal Studios in America and walking around and just seeing Diagon Alley for the first time. Like, I think because you've been to Universal.
Oh, several times, dear. Several times.
What was your reaction to actually physically walking and having that welcome to Diagon Alley moment?
Right, God's honest truth. So the first time I did it, and this was very unplanned, right? So we had basically in 2019 done a cruise from Shanghai, and we went around a few places in Japan. And as we docked into somewhere in Japan, and for the life of me, I cannot remember where it was. I think it was Osaka. I think, I could be wrong. But as we docked in, I was standing on top of the boat and I looked over and I was like, that looks like Hogwarts. And then Ewan, who I was with, he said, yeah, no, that's Universal over there. And I said, they've got a Harry Potter world in Universal here. And he was like, yeah. And I said, we're going. So we ended up going. And I just remember walking in through, was it Diagon Alley or Hogsmeade? It was one of them, because I know they have one, but not the other. And I remember walking in, and the tears literally fell from my eyes. I was like, oh my God, I am in my mid-20s and I'm crying at this. What the hell is going on? But it was just the most surreal, and it was just an amazing experience. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I cannot wait for you to experience that. I cannot wait.
I am honestly waiting for the day that happens, and I don't think my body can cope.
No, I just remember going on all the rides that I possibly could. Don't get me wrong, not a single word of these rides were in English, so I was just merrily going along listening to Hermione being dubbed in Japanese and going like, yeah, I'm sure this is cool. Yeah, I think I know what she's saying. And then just sort of going for it. I mean, like having one of the portraits in the Defence Against the Dark Arts classroom shout at you in Japanese, it's even more terrifying, because you're like, I think I know what you're saying, but I don't really know what you're saying.
I think we're both in that same kind of category of like even what Harry would be like walking into Diagon Alley. It's that kind of like you turn the corner and it's just sudden awe.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no feeling like it. It's completely unmatched. It's honestly, I think it's because I've been waiting for so long to go. And I remember seeing all the hype and the build up when it was being built and when it was initially being announced. And then seeing it open, seeing all the people go, and then eventually actually getting to go. And the first time that I went, not even being fully planned, it was just completely like by accident. It was just amazing.
It was almost like Hagrid had just taken you out of the Muggle world.
Yeah, literally. But saying that, I was with Ewan, who is, I'll say this in the nicest possible way, he's not magically inclined in any way, shape or form. So I'm standing there absolutely crying, listening to the soundtrack, and he's like, are you okay? Do you need someone?
Do I need to call for help?
I'm like, it's fine, you just don't understand. You just don't get it. You just don't get it.
So after kind of composing yourself and getting yourself through those gates and into Diagon Alley, we kind of start going through all of the different shops. And I'm not going to kind of repeat what we've said on the last episode. And if you guys haven't already listened to it, go check the episode out for more kind of Diagon Alley and shopping in the Wizarding World, because we cover a lot of those different shops in that episode. So I'm not going to touch upon it too much, but we finally kind of go into Ollivander's and we meet Mr. Ollivander's himself.
Yep.
Now, again, this is where like the books to film really kind of let this point down, because it's so much more mundane in the film.
Yeah.
Because I was suddenly realizing like how much is going on in that scene in the books. You've got a tape measure, like measuring Harry up, like sizing his head, armpits, length of his arms and everything. And it's a magical tape at this point as well.
Good,
and
absolutely.
It just kind of like takes away from like what is going on within the magical world of this is not a normal experience.
No, there's so much going on. There's so much going on in there. And right, so the thing is, and I will sound like I'll just sound like an absolute twat. But see, the whole aspect of wand lore, it fascinates me so much. And I am fully aware, right, that this is fictional. I am fully aware. But fascinating nonetheless, that the fact that the wand core, the flexibility, the length, the wood types, if you go on to the Wizarding World website and you look deeper into these things, there's just so much knowledge behind it all. Like Hermione having a vine wand, so-and-so having this one, so-and-so having that wand, etc. And to link that to these people's personalities, their talents, attributes, it's so fascinating.
It's crazy the length of detail within all of this lore and actually how it all links through. And I think this is then where we're going to kind of start talking about it when we get into the episode where we start talking about wands and the different types. And I think it might have to be broken down into multiple episodes, but it's definitely something that we are going to talk about in terms of different wand laws. So definitely kind of stay tuned if you are interested in that.
Absolutely.
But I think like there's definitely things that are missed within the whole shopping experience. Like the fact that Harry tries multiple wands in this scene, whereas in the film he's tried 3.
Yeah, just the 3. That's it.
And like you said, like when we were talking about Diagon Alley, it's that whole shopping experience of like you're going to Ollivander's because you want like it's a whole day's experience.
Yeah, it's like a full shopping experience.
So again, it's definitely one of those scenes where I can't help but read the book as John Hurt reading those lines.
And the thing is, with John Hurt, he played him phenomenally. I loved John Hurt as Ollivander, even in the latter films as well. And I think going between Philosopher's Stone to Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, it looks as if no time has passed.
He was definitely at that age where it doesn't matter like how much time is passing, like he's just going to look the same.
It's wizened.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just as you were saying, you know, coming back to the whole getting your wand and stuff. So whenever you do go to Universal, you do need to go and do the whole Ollivander show and see if you get picked to pick your own wand. So I had went in full robes, had a fake Hedwig with me, and I went into that shop about 5 times. I just kept doing a loop until I got chosen.
Oh, I'm fully elbowing 11-year-olds out of the way.
Yeah, but see, the thing was, right, so the guy who was playing Ollivander, like the actor at the park, he clearly seen that I was coming back in. So as I was leaving the last time, he said, wait a minute, and he gave me like an own private show thing, and he picked a wand for me. I think it was just to say, stop coming in here, you loon. But I was like, yes, I've got that one, yeah.
Very Slytherin of you. You did whatever you needed to do to get what you wanted.
Yes. We can all be a little bit Slytherin sometimes, not a bad thing.
So the whole Ollivander's like picking the wand and like having like the sparks fly out of the wand as well. Like it's such a different thing to what they did in the films where it almost seems lackluster.
Yeah, it's just like, ooh, wind machine.
Like honestly, don't get me wrong. Like it is a very cool like goosebump moment.
Yeah.
But it's more of like a celebration. Like you've got Hagrid cheering him on and like everything. Like this was the moment that you were kind of like waiting to happen, and it's now happened, and you've got your wand.
Yeah.
But the one thing that was quite interesting was because Hagrid was in there at the time, where obviously he's not in the film, is Ollivander makes a remark about Hagrid's wand being snapped in half.
Yes.
When it was spelled. And he then remarks, I hope you're not still using it.
Like, no, of course not. What do you know? Who have you been speaking to?
Now, interestingly, it brought up a bit of a kind of idea in my head. It's like, can snap wands still be used? And I think obviously we might touch on snap wands in the wand episode, but I just wanted to kind of like briefly touch on it here because we've said about different wands and everything. It's snapped, but it's still being used. So therefore, can a snapped wand be used?
So here is my question, or rather, not question, my counterpoint to that. So if you recall, when Harry was in command of the Elder Wand, he used it before he gave it back to Dumbledore in his grave, book version, not the snapping of it and throwing it off. Before he gave the wand back to Dumbledore, he used it to repair his own wand, which was broken. Now, the Elder Wand being the most powerful wand to be ever made, Dumbledore being in possession of the Elder Wand at that time, and also giving Hagrid the job of gamekeeper, I think Dumbledore had a little bit of a Buckshee number. A wee, I'll just repair that one for you. I'll chuck it in a brolly. Bit of pizzazz. A giant with a pink umbrella. Nobody will look twice. Exactly. I'm convinced, Dumbledore was looking after Hagrid. He was like, look, listen, mate, I'll do this for you. Just don't tell the ministry. I'll keep in with Ollivander, should things go wrong.
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. If anything goes wrong, you're the muscle.
But that's my theory. Whether or not it's true is another thing. Write in, let me know.
I think let's go with that. Let's go with that. I quite like that. That's definitely like a let's go with let's headcanon that. At the end of the chapter, I think it's such a kind of, as Harry says, balloon being deflated. That sudden realization, he's now got to go back to the Dursleys.
Yeah, how long does he spend with them? It's another month, isn't it?
Well, I think it's definitely quite a while, because all of this is happening at his birthday, which is July.
Yeah, 31st of July. Presumably it goes to Diagon Alley on that day.
Yeah, so, well, it'd be the day after, so no, it would be, wouldn't it? It'd be 31st of July.
So then he's got from the 1st of August right through to the 1st of September. Oh, hun, that's a rough month.
Exactly, carrying all of that stuff back to the Dursleys and not, like, that's got to be under the stairs with him. Oh, no, I take that, sorry. Like, having all of that stuff, he's in the bedroom, I know, I just realised what I said.
No, but at this point, was he still not under the stairs?
No, he's been given the bedroom.
Ah!
No, he's been given the bedroom.
Everything's coming up, Harry.
Exactly. Like, it's one win after another at this point.
Exactly.
So yeah, he's got to stay at the Dursleys for a whole month with all of this stuff, knowing that he's going, but cannot use any of it. Like, that is like giving you a red button and telling you not to press it.
I know. It's like, this is what you have for Christmas. I am going to wrap it for you, put it under the tree, but you can't touch it.
It's even worse. It's not even like putting it under the tree. It's like, it's going to sit at the end of your bed and you cannot unwrap it. You cannot touch it. You cannot even smell the box. Don't even look at it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like, that is torture 101.
Yep.
But he's finally, like, it's finally here. He is going to Hogwarts. September 1st is around the corner. And literally, at this point, it is round the corner. I think when this episode airs, it is going to be, what is it going to be, like 2 days? 2 days from back to Hogwarts.
I know. I've not even packed.
I know, you better start getting packed. Better go to Diagon Alley, get your stuff.
I know.
So overall, let's do a kind of wrap up of this chapter. Overall, what were your kind of overall thoughts, opinions, and tea about the chapter?
Well, this chapter had everything. It's a very good chapter. It is like, okay, the magic's here. Let's get the party started. Let's go shopping. Let's hit the sales. Let's get your wand. Let's get your robes. Let's get everything else under the sun. We are going to Hogwarts, baby. We are going. I
think, yeah, definitely what you said, it's gone from like 0 to 100 really quickly, and we are suddenly kind of going full speed ahead into the Wizarding World. Like, there is no stopping these brakes. Like, you're crashing whether you like it or not. You're going full plow into it. And we are here for the ride. So, with that in mind, our next episode will be our Back to Hogwarts special. So, get ready for you guys to see us on the platform, because I think we're both going to platform 9 3/4. Yeah, well, if Thameslink doesn't go on even further strike. But yes, God willing, I will be there. Well, you've got 2 brooms to get you there if you do need it. Literally. But we will definitely be at the platform 9 3/4, so I hope to see a few of you guys there. And it will be a Back to Hogwarts special next week. So, as always, keep your radios tuned in to the Wizarding Wireless Network and get ready for next week's episode. Bye-bye now. Bye.